Hello everyone. So we are back with another expert session, this time with Sunil Bhandari. So Sunil is an expert tutor for AFM. He comes with an experience of teaching from so many years, and now we have him so that he can share his wisdom and experience with all of us. So firstly, welcome Sunil.
Thank you. Thank
And
you. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you. Thank you.
okay.
Looking forward to the session.
So in this session, we basically have like three sub sessions in which we'll have like first of all we'll ask some of the general questions which is asked by our audience, and then
Right.
we'll ask you some of the questions which we want to know from you, and lastly we'll have some fun questions which we'll reveal at the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Fun questions.
yeah.
Okay. I'll look forward to the last session.
Yeah, so I think Tushita will start with the general session, which is like some of the questions which is asked by our audience.
Okay. Go ahead.
Right.
Happy to go ahead.
So I'm going to shoot now. The first question is, how do you think the difficulty level goes up from FM when someone is going to opt for AFM?
Now, I think this is a really good question, and I would say to you, remarkably, I think AFM is to a large extent marginally easier than FM. And the reason why that is this is my description. When you do FM, it is like trying to become a general practitioner in finance where you need to know a little bit about many things. But when you do AFM, you need to know a lot about three or four topics. So I think that the other point I'd like to answer on that is because we have so many spreadsheet tools available in ACCA AFM, which you can't use in FM because of the objective test questions. It's not easier, but the jump up isn't as big as other papers. I'm not a tax expert. I'm not an expert on AAA or APM, but AFM is takes little bits from FM and it extrapolates. And so therefore I think it's and the other thing is look at the global pass rates. Never mind what my pass rates are. I won't comment on that. I wouldn't be here if my pass rates weren't good. But look at the global pass rates. That tells you everything.
Definitely, totally agree with you. So the next thing that we want to ask is, according to you, what are some of the commonly tested topics in the AFM exam?
Okay. There are three. There are two which must be tested in every exam to some extent. Advanced investment appraisal, with or without real options, must be in the exam to some extent. Risk management, currency risk, interest rate risk, business financial risk, treasury, to some extent must come in every exam. Yeah. So those two are there, and generally one's going to be in Q1 and one's going to be in Q2 or 3. But the most tested topic is business valuations with or without corporate reconstructions, which I mean, I always pray I was very lucky I wrote the official article on that particular subject, which has a story on its own, which I won't say here, right? But it's a story when I wrote that article in 2014. So this is a fairly predictable exam. It doesn't mean they won't test other areas like dividend policy or ratios or cost of capital, but those three are the key.
Yes, I remember the topics that you told coming right in my AFM exam when I appeared in June 2023 session. So, yeah, I agree. So, what do you think of the pre-September mock that has recently been released by ACCA? And do you think that somewhere on the somewhere the final exam will be on these lines?
Uh, I think that's a difficult area for me to comment on. I've only briefly looked at it. I, I'll tell you what. I think it's a good mock examination. I'm not sure compared to the mock examinations that I write. I'm not criticizing it. I'm not making any negative comment about it. Um, but I think it's an examination paper. Well, if you look at question 3, it's got a topic in there that's no longer in the syllabus.
Yeah.
So and I've given my comments to the ACCA directly on that. I will never make a public comment on that. It's not correct for me to do so, and I'm not saying so. I'm just saying that that is not in the syllabus. Multi-period capital rationing on calculations is no longer in the syllabus. Why are there all the questions on investment appraisal valuation? There's no. It doesn't seem. It seems a little bit imbalanced in my opinion. But because I write my own mock exams, and I want to mention this point that on the practice platform, I've got 50 of my own questions which I have written, and so I know what I've written and what I've created for my own students. So I'm not criticizing the exam. I think it's my observation is that in comparison, would I write the same exam? No, that's the best way to put it. I would not write the same exam.
Yeah, even I had a look at the mock exam, and looking at question number 3, I thought that this was not something that I studied when I was studying for my exam. So possibly because it is no longer in the syllabus, I did not.
Well, may I say this? I woke up this morning, UK time at 5:30. Normally to speak to my wife from India because she's obviously currently there and she's on your time zone, which is 4.5 hours ahead of mine. And normally she's waking me up to tell me the chores I have to do for the day, right? Even though I'm at home and she's there, right? Feed the cat is the first one, right? But I woke up with the best part of 40 plus messages from students who are not my students, who are not on my courses, saying, "Sir, have you seen the mock exam question 3? There is something on there." And I then looked at it. I hadn't looked at it until today, to be honest with you, because I've been concentrating on my own mock examinations, which I tend to write. I mean, I look at it from my view. I try to project what I think is going to come on the exam, and I write 2 examination papers with that in mind. And I write my questions from fresh. So if don't mind me saying this, so I wrote a question called Padakun, and you know who Padakun is, actress, Deepika Padakun. So I wrote a question named after her because I happened to be at my mother's house and she was watching ZTV, right? And that question is based on where I think may appear in the exam. So I write my question from fresh. I think what's going to happen, not what has happened, it's what's going to happen.
Right,
That's
and I
my view.
think that that is what when we are looking at finance, it's always changing, ever evolving, dynamic. So there's always a need to look into the future rather than see what's happened in the past. So
Yeah.
totally agree on
Yes.
that. Now the last question in this segment before Punya takes over for the next one. So many students are scared in AFM because the AFM paper is partly numerical. However, majority part is discursive, where you have to type your answer instead of doing some working out some numbers. So how do you think students can overcome this?
I believe the examination is moving to a 40-40-20 balance. Yeah, and I think it's moving that way. 40 calculations, 40 written, 20 professional skills. Yeah. And within the 40 on calculations, the analysis and evaluation comes into play, right? But when you look at the skepticism and acumen marks which come within the written part, what you've got to do is say, first of all, where is that written coming from? 2 sources. Source 1, the knowledge of the syllabus, the knowledge of the written parts. If you can do a calculation, you can criticize a calculation. You can talk about it. So if I said to you, what is WACC, what is risk adjusted WACC, you can talk about it as well as calculate it. Yeah. So there's the elements of discussing the calculations. That's one part of the theory. There's the pure theory elements like, green finance, ESG, those areas, right? But there's also the acumen, what you get out of the question. So much of the answer comes from within that question. What you have to do, and this is an old adage, practice. Practice. Some of the written can be done before the numbers are done. You don't have to do all the numbers to do the written. Yeah, and the written marks are, in my opinion, easier to obtain in some areas. Yeah, in some parts of it. So it's a mixture of the knowledge, the application, what's in the question. But the other thing is, look out for snippets of current information you can bring into an answer. So if I said to you, I mentioned David Beckham in one of my recent answers, you'd go, David Beckham, he's a footballer. How does he come into your answer?
Yeah.
But there is a question, pro players, about a business valuation, journalist, sports journalist, etc. And I asked the question of the ACCA, if you bring in a relevant recent topic into your answer, will you be given credit? Yes. Yes, you will. Yeah. And that is key to it. Yeah.
I think this is what is needed in the workspace also when we are working professionals, seeing what is happening around us and then bringing that to the business, how we respond to changes. So I think that's very important as well. And the ACCA has, done a really good job awarding marks for quoting the real scenarios in their answers.
Yeah. It's got to be a relevant real scenario. Don't force something in that you can't. Don't make it go there. It's got to naturally go there. Right now, the one that's natural is when we look at we observe the assumptions in an investment appraisal or in CAPM. We say the risk-free rate is assumed to remain constant. Really? UK base rates have gone up, American base rates have gone up. That risk-free rate no longer remains constant. Oh, that governments hold their tax rates constant. UK have just increased their corporation tax rate. Yeah. So what you've got to look at, is there an observation? Is there an observation outside I can bring in, and it just that one sentence makes my answer look so much more professional.
Right. So now Punya will take over for the second segment.
Okay.
So now we'll start with some of the questions that we want to ask you. So the
Okay.
first question is, we know that you have an experience of teaching from so many years, and within those years you would have checked so many mocks and papers of so many students. So what
Right.
can a student make their answers or answer scripts stand out and little different, more presentable, to gain certain extra marks maybe?
On the written side, it's important that you write in short and sharp paragraphs. On the written side, it's important to leave space for the marker to see and digest. I mean, I had a sip of water. I didn't drink the whole water. I had a sip of water, then I put it down, then I think. And I didn't do that deliberately. I did, but that was the process. Now I could mark. A marker marks. A marker is like a great white shark. They go, they eat fish, and they move on.
Yeah.
A marker marks, ticks, moves on. Marker ticks, moves on. Markers are marking with positivity. They want you to pass. There's no negative marking. So think of the marker. Give some white space to the marker. Right? Don't worry about spelling errors. Make sure you're writing short, sharp paragraphs. Use subheadings. Put the requirements there so you can attack it. On the calculation side, use as many of the shortcuts you have available. MPV function, IRR function,
Yeah.
using what is going MIRR function. Don't copy and paste from the tables when you can calculate a discount factor. And if you put anything in using a calculator, yeah, well, calculator, yeah, use a calculator, you type in, yeah, why you what you've done there. We know, this balance is a balancing figure. Yeah, so it's important you get the markers on your side. Remember, in AFM, they can see your cell. They mark your cell.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's get standardized. Calculations on the left, workings on the right. Why make them go down? Let them go to the right. You've got to think your marker is your friend. You've got to get them to love your script.
Yeah.
That's the key thing. Let them love your script. they'll pass you.
So the next question is, since AFM is one of the optional papers in the professional level, who do you think should opt for AFM?
Wow, what a question. What a question. There's several answers to this. Okay, I'll start with my stock answer, my normal answer. This is quite appropriate since India just landed on the moon. A Martian comes down from Mars, arrives into the Earth, and has to sit two option papers to pass ACCA. I'm assuming a Martian is more logical than a human. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm going to assume that, right? What is the first thing they're going to look at? The global pass rate. That's the first thing they're going to look at. Which is the easiest one for me to stay on Earth?
Yeah.
Okay, so and I'm not going to say what that is. That's for students to look at. Area 1. Area 2. If I had £1 or even £1 for every time a past student has asked me a question about something that they have done in AFM, I wouldn't quite be a millionaire, but I'd be able to live comfortably,
Yeah.
right? Because we teach reality. We teach reality. Right? Point number 3, whether you go in industry or whether you go in practice, AFM is relevant.
Yeah.
AFM is relevant. But the last point is the point I can't control. It depends what your employer says. It depends what your employer wants. If you're working in a big four practice and they want you to do audit and ATX, then you are doing audit and ATX.
Yeah.
But those are why I would choose AFM. One last thing, I've had many students in my time who have been exempt FM and have passed AFM first time.
Yeah.
Now that tells you, I don't think you can do that with many other papers.
No.
I don't know. I'm not expert on those. But you can do it with AFM. It's doable. Definitely.
Okay. So the next question is, we have seen so many students, choosing an easier option and going for selective study of the portion. They do not cover the whole portion but do selective study. So do you think it is a right approach? Should students actually follow selective study or not?
No. No. I mean, selective study. If you've got a big syllabus, that's a different story, right? I've said already, AFM is a fairly smallish syllabus with depth. So what are you going to select not to do? Which part are you selecting? Oh, I'm not going to do that part, right? Because you haven't got that big a syllabus that you're dealing with. It's not ATX where you got tax and then you got ATX on top of it. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
In ours, it's so no. The most important thing I think is to be comprehensive. Sorry, comprehensive on your learning phase and start applying very early on. I mean, on my revision courses, my revision courses are finished. We're now on to mocks, and we did the whole of the month to do revision. We don't do it in the
Yeah.
last 2 weeks. No, selective study is a recipe of danger. No, I wouldn't recommend it. No.
Yeah, truly. So the last question we want to ask you is about the recently launched ACCA Study Hub.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts upon that? Is it useful for AFM students or is it not? Like the traditional Kaplan and BPP kits are enough?
I think it's a great move forward. I think it's a wonderful move forward. I think as a set of source material to work on for, does it replace a textbook? Yes, it does. I think it replaces a textbook. If you want to replace a textbook, it's there. If it replaces part of an exam kit, it's there. For me, I have not an issue with that, but I created a video exam kit because my great belief was you need to see processes. I made lamb kimma last night for my mother who's 95. I didn't do it by reading a recipe book. I just got a YouTube video and followed it. So it's a great move forward. It's a wonderful move forward. I don't know if it's better or the same or worse or anywhere compared to Kaplan and BPP, um, but I think it's a great move forward in terms of having a set of centralized material, um, to access for reference purposes. But I always say you can ask a tutor a question. You can't ask a book a question.
Yeah.
You can ask her a tutor a question, yeah, but you can't ask a book a question, and that's I think where it's part of a new jigsaw. It's part of a new jigsaw, but it's not the jigsaw.
Yeah, true. So thank you so much for beautifully answering.
Okay.
So now, Tushita, will move forward to the fun section that we have for you. So over
Okay.
to you.
Right. So the first thing that we'd like to ask you, when you are not teaching or when you're not working, what are the things that you do in your time that you're spending?
Wow. Okay. Now, every student in the world knows I have this very famous saying, right? And that is, I love three things in my life. I love my wife Rita. I love my two children, Curran and Jaya, who I taught in class to pass as chartered accountants, right? But I love Manchester United Football Club more than anything else in my life. So tomorrow I'm going to the football. Every student knows I love the football. They know I love and go there. It's my devotion. And I often say to my wife, I love you depends on the day. Whether I love you first or second. So football, Manchester United is my life. Yeah, it is my life, and I have every year I buy the brand new shirts. They're upstairs, ready to wear each game, and I'm very sort of I get and I look forward to seeing my friends who I've known for 25 years at the football. I love the football.
That's interesting. Good to know that. Okay, so here are some this or that questions that I'm going to ask you, and you try to answer them as quickly as you can. Okay.
Okay,
So, teaching or studying?
teaching,
Okay. ACCA Study Hub or the BPP and Kaplan kits?
study hub.
Okay. Taking live classes or marking answer scripts?
Wow, we recorded script. Yeah, live. I would say live, live. A lecture is all yeah, live lecture.
Okay.
I do recorded lectures, but I'll say live.
Okay. So, have you ever watched any Bollywood movie?
Yes, I've watched them occasionally with my. I would say I've watched them. I've been forced to go in there with my wife.
Okay. So, any movies that you maybe recently watched?
I have not watched one recently. I tend to sit with my mother watching when she's watching Indian serials, and
Okay.
then I go in and watch, and I keep typing and working and let her watch, and then type and working and let her watch. So no, I don't normally go. I haven't been to that much, but my mother's more into Indian movies than I am. I don't. To be honest, I don't get the time to do it. That's the
Yeah.
main reason why.
Okay, you're
Because I'm
too busy
I,
watching football, so.
I'm too busy watching football. Yeah, I'm too busy. We have a television for my football, then we have a television for my other areas. That's how it works in this house. So it's there. But when
Okay.
when I come to India, which is normally in around January time, when the weather here is not so good, then occasionally I might go with my niece to watch a film.
Yeah.
Occasionally, but normally I'm just also I'm seeing friends then, so I'm out there seeing friends. So.
Usually for us, we feel that the weather in the colder months, the January, December, is relatively a good time for us because the rest of the year it's way too hot.
Yeah, yes. I mean, it's incredibly warm at the moment, and like I said to you, my wife's in Chandigarh. And it's incredibly warm and
Yeah.
sticky and not nice. And for somebody like me, who I always like to come out around sort of either just for Diwali, so I see that, or the other preference for me is to come out ideally around February. My birthday is in March, right near Holi, which I absolutely love. So then I see that, then I head home. So because then it becomes a nice temperature,
Yeah.
mid 20s, dry heat. nice, pleasant, and I enjoy that. I really enjoy
Right.
compared to
Okay.
the winter in the UK, which is not good.
Yes. We hope that maybe whenever next time you come to India, we probably get to see you.
Sure, sure. I met. I mean, there were some students of mine who I taught on my courses who were from three different places in India, and they met me in Chandigarh. They all flew into there, and I met them, and it was really, really good. So we really enjoyed seeing everybody, and it was good. Yeah, it's just that when I can get out to India, I'll be honest, I'm waiting for a double knee replacement, and that's where the problem has arisen because I have to wait for that operation before I can be allowed to fly. So, but that's on the way. It doesn't stop me going to the football.
Really?
Nothing stops
Okay,
the
so
football.
before you go, Punya will ask you one last question and then we'll
Sure.
sign off.
Okay.
Okay, so since September attempt is so close, so what advice or what tips and tricks you want to give to all the people who are doing AFM this September?
Okay. That's a really good question. Right. Let me briefly think about that. First of all, make sure you are right on top of those three core topics which I've mentioned. Be sure about those core topics. Make sure you're happy with those. Um, I have a funny feeling about BSOP. I don't know that there's something in my mind about that. I don't
Okay.
know. There's something there in my mind that's thinking that's got to have a chance of being examined in the very near future with the calculator.
Yeah.
Yeah, being available and I just think that might be a possibility as a tip area. Um, I was also one of the last thing I would say to you on the paper that was published by the ACCA, the March June paper. There was no currency and interest rate risk question for the
Yeah.
first time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm thinking one of those then. One of those.
Um,
So know your core topics really well. Got those really good. I mean, if you know risk management, advanced investment appraisal, and you know valuations, you're not going to go far wrong. You're not going to go far wrong. Yeah, from that area. And then I have a funny. I don't know. There's something in my mind about B. So I don't know. There's something that keeps bringing me back to this. It's time to bring this into the as a proper full question for everybody. Um, and then just like I said to you, risk management. They didn't test the currency interest rate risk, or they did, but they didn't publish it. Yeah. Look, one last thing. Don't get caught out. You know when you're in the exam room, don't get caught out by something that is non-core that may irritate you. Move on.
Yeah.
I mean, there were two notorious, not notorious questions, that's a wrong word to use. Two questions which caused up some problems. One was currency interest rate swap, which, even though that's fair, but there was a question about, and we're back to football, there's a question about a football club in the last exam. And it was about Everton, in my opinion, it was about Everton Football Club, not dealing with financial fair play. But it was a reconstruction question.
Mm.
But everybody, it just caused problems. But that's not the difference in pass and fail. It's doing the core areas correctly, writing well, don't miss anything out, move on. Don't miss anything out, move on. That's the key to passing the exam. But in my mind, if you ask me for a tip, BSOP. Just keep thinking that at the moment. There's something in my head about that.
Okay. Okay, so thank you so much for
That's okay.
this wonderful session and providing us with your knowledgeable advice to our students who are giving their paper in September. I hope this session turns out to be useful for all of those people, and thank you for doing this with us.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you. Take care. Take care. All right.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Thank